Hello, this is I Go Travel with Don Barnett. I'm going to make a two-part video of one of the greatest highways in Canada. It's called the Crowsnest Highway, Highway number 3. It runs across part of Alberta and the southern part of British Columbia. And it's a great road of variety and interest. 1,000 stories on the different communities along that road. They're waiting for us. And we'll go through mountains and lakes and orchards and cattle areas. Just a great variety and a great road. Come on, let's take a quick look at it and jump on board, and we're going to have some fun. There's the highway sign that will follow, the Crowsnest, Highway number 3, across southern British Columbia. It is a 2-lane paved highway with frequent parking lanes and pullouts and rest areas. Averages about 1,800 cars per day and say 800 trucks per day. It's busy, but it's not crowded. And it is regarded as the 9th most dangerous highway in the province, with the number 1 dangerous one being number 1, the Trans-Canada Highway to the north. But in the summertime, it's ample, and as you can see, sometimes you get behind trucks and you've just got to stay behind them. It's not a high-speed highway, but it is a beautiful, scenic, variety kind of a road. This is in the fall, these pictures. I went across most of this trip in the spring, but it changes scenery throughout the year. As you can see, there's some traffic, but not crowded. And the time of year, as you can see, does make a difference. You don't want to be meeting too many of these guys on the road. You're there at the wrong time of year, but you have to slow down. There's actually more accidents in the summertime than the winter, and that's probably due to higher speed in the summer. Old truck runaway lanes are still there, but not used much. New technology makes them obsolete. The yellow line represents the Crowsnest Highway, and we're going to go from the B.C. Alberta border west to the community of Hope, where the highway joins the Trans-Canada Highway and goes on into Vancouver. Here is a list of the communities that we'll drive through, and we'll therefore start at the Alberta border. And the first community is Sparwood, and these are all of the communities along the Crowsnest Highway. And I'll tell you a little bit and show you a few photographs about each one of them until we get to the end of the highway at Hope. The highway has 4 big administrative regional districts in it. And each one is unique. The landscape and the geography is unique, and the stories within each one is unique. The black line, of course, represents the Crowsnest Highway. And I just want to point out in this slide here, there are 4 regional districts along the highway that you'll go through. The Similkameen is near the west end. And then there's the Boundary District, very rich historically in mineral development. And these communities are in the boundary area. And if you get into the Kootenays, first the West Kootenays, places like Castlegar and Sawmills. And then as you get near the Alberta border, it's the East Kootenays. Places like Fernie and Cranbrook are the larger communities. Sometimes I talk to people who are a little worried about driving the Crowsnest because it goes through the mountains of British Columbia. But it's a good road, and a lot of people travel it and respect it, and it's a mighty fine highway. There are 4 passes along the highway. The first pass is the Crowsnest Pass near the Alberta border, not bad. Kootenay Pass is the second pass. If you're pulling an RV or a truck, you'll notice it's a bit of a pull up and going down the other side, but not too bad. Paulson Summit is another high area. And number 4, Allison Pass near Hope Princeton is another good-sized pass. There's some good hills at Osoyoos, which is in the low lake area, and there's another one, a low area at Castlegar. And other than that, it's really a very fine road to drive. The East Kootenay runs from the Alberta border to the Creston area. Our drive begins right here at the B.C Alberta border. There's a story of a shootout and a hanging along this border. Alberta had prohibition, so booze came in illegally from B.C. right over this Crowsnest Pass. In the shootout, an Alberta provincial policeman was killed. The bootleg king from British Columbia told one of his employees, a young female, to say that she had actually done the shooting, assuring her that a woman had never been hung in Canada and would never be. The judge disagreed. Both were from BC, both were hung. The only time in Alberta history a female was ever hung. Was she guilty? We will never know. But this kind of question arises when a country has a barbaric hanging law. Canada law has long been dismantled, and its old law of the hanging is no longer exists. First town is Sparwood. We are in long-term coal country. Coal from here fed the historic industrialization of the American Northwest, and you can see the big truck right from the highway. Claimed to be the largest truck in the world, this big boy is retired, partly because of 2 reasons. Smaller trucks, more maneuverable in mining areas, has replaced the big ones. And also the cost of repair and the cost of tires on these big monster trucks has really declined, caused a decline in their use. But this one at Sparwood, like I said, it claims to be the largest in the world. Coal still flows from the Elk Valley. You can see the long trains right along the highway. Long trains of 100 cars or more haul the high-grade coal to Vancouver. From Vancouver, it is shipped to Japan. Canada continues to supply other countries with valuable raw materials where others have found a valuable use for it. And the big Canadian trains roll at times day and night. Between Fernie and Cranbrook, the highway crosses the Kootenay River. The old bridge was replaced long ago. Smoke that follows the river valley makes great sunset photos. The town at the river, the Kootenay River, is Wardner, a mere shell of what it once was. The sign along the highway tells of steamboats carrying supplies to the gold fields in Cranbrook on Wild Horse Creek. But in reality, the river is shallow and the sandbars hung up the boats, and the steam ships lasted only a short time. Today, the rail line along the river carries coal to Vancouver and then goes to Japan. Lots of bicycle trails of all kinds in the Fernie, Cranbrook, Kimberley areas. The city of Fernie has moved from a coal center to a tourist center, supported by great scenery, fly fishing in the Elk River, and as one of Canada's major ski resorts. This historic wooden derrick along the highway is a reminder that oil was first discovered in the Waterton National Park area before larger discoveries were made in the Calgary-Edmonton regions. This area west of Fernie runs alongside the Elk River, where there are no barriers to prevent a vehicle from slipping into the swift-flowing river, which is adjacent to a high-speed highway. Government is negligent here, and in some other places west in the Boundary and Similkameen regions. They are locations where accidents have claimed lives and are waiting for an accident to happen again. Near the town of Jaffrey, which is midway between Fernie and Cranbrook, is a wildlife underpass. Both underpasses and overpasses have shown to be highly effective in avoiding collisions and enabling wildlife to cross busy highways. Fencing that guides wildlife toward these crossings is part of the effectiveness of these structures. But whoa, look here. They built a cattle gate in front of the wildlife underpass. It is the end of wildlife migration here. They say the highways department slapped up the gate, completed the contract, and left on down the road before forestry or wildlife management were consulted. I took this picture from on top of the wildlife corridor, looking down at the cattle gate. Now word is out that they are going to correct this expensive error. I guess they will if they want the wildlife to stand a chance in this area. After spending $1 million on building a much-needed wildlife underpass here, you may as well spend a few more dollars and get it right. Only time will tell. A little further along the highway is a tragic reminder when government holds off for too long to correct a dangerous section of highway. 20 to 30 crosses note deaths here, and there were even more injuries along this bad stretch of road. Since the highway was straightened out and rerouted, I don't think there has been a single accident in this area. It is similar to the tragedy along Highway 16, the Yellowhead Highway in northern BC, where I made another travelogue. Both are examples where citizens have had to resort to strong measures to get government to respond before more lives would have to be unnecessarily lost. The Crowsnest Highway has a couple of other more very dangerous areas where no guardrails exist, and there is no barrier to prevent a vehicle from slipping into a swift-flowing river right along a high-speed highway. Government neglect is evident both along the western end of the highway and west of Fernie along the Elk River. Both of these areas are waiting for another tragic accident to happen. Cranbrook is the largest city in the area. It is the center of the East Kootenays. It's the location of the major hospital, government services headquarters, and a regional distribution and services center. Just to the east of Cranbrook, you see these big hayfields watered by screened and aerated sewage water, a process that has drawn worldwide attention. And of course, the snow melts in the summer, and Cranbrook is in a broad, wide valley. Those mountains are called the steeples, a great backdrop. The steeples are covered in snow in winter, but it melts off in the summer. Fall is a beautiful part of the country, and the deer even enjoy it. And the fall, of course, brings a change of the colors of the trees and makes it a beautiful highway ride. And you'll see various lumber mills still in operation. Canada, unfortunately, continues to export its unprocessed timber, like its coal, to foreign countries like the U.S., Japan, Australia. This is a historic photo of thousands of railway ties that were made and distributed across Canada to build the Transcontinental Railroad. Here is the small community of Yak, where some entrepreneurs try to earn a living from the highway traffic. These goats eating grass from rooftops are a tourist attraction indeed. They are the stars of the show. You can see elk anytime. Watch out for them at night. And there's turns that are tricky. We're headed toward Creston. The road straight ahead goes to the U.S. border, but Highway 3, keep attention to that number 3 sign. And in this case, we have to turn to the right, and we're on our way to Creston. The Kootenay River has made its U-turn in the States and comes back across the border going north. Nice big valley, agricultural production, orchards produce all kinds of fruits and vegetables. Creston is one of the few communities where you drive right through the main street of town. Many communities that the highway misses along the edges of town, and you don't see the communities. But we're right here on the main street. Here's some old 2 grain elevators that are a real mark for Creston. It's an agricultural area with the broad, flat valley of the Kootenay River here, and here's some orchard scenes, and they produce fruit. On the west side of town is a great wetlands that you can walk out on and really spend an enjoyable time. At the right time of year, you can see quite a variety of birds, and the Rocky Mountain painted turtle also. In a few places along the highway, you see where the springs have crept out of the ground and crawled over the rocks and makes nice ice falls like these ones here just on the west side of Creston. We are leaving Creston and going up Kootenay Pass. That's for the trucks to chain up, but there's snow ahead. I took a picture of the Kootenay summit in the winter. A little hiking shack up there, and big trucks often stop at the top of the summit to take a rest and a breather and cool down, and either wind down either side and gear down for the long haul, now downhill. We ran into an early spring snowstorm on the top of Kootenay Pass, but go slow, take it easy. The road is well maintained, graded and sanded. Take your time, and we're coming down off the pass, headed towards Salmo, and this snow will be all gone when we get to the bottom. As we leave the East Kootenays, the countryside generally changes from pine tree, drier country, to more moist cedar tree kind of growth in the West Kootenays. We already stopped at Salmo, where they have a nice rail trail that runs north. We are just coming into Castlegar here. This is Doukhobor country. The Doukhobors were a pacifist group from Russia who settled in this area in the pioneer times and really developed the country area here. That is the airport runway in the distance. It's a tight valley here, and bad weather often causes flight cancellations, giving Castlegar the nickname of Castlegar. This is another area. Watch your signs here. We want Grand Forks to the west. The boundary region along Highway 3 generally runs from the Christina Lake area over westward as far as Osoyoos. We are going over the bridge at another high elevation area, Paulson Pass. You can ride a bike on a former railway bed from here northward back to Castlegar, or southward to Christina Lake, and that is where we are going to drop elevation into. Christina Lake claims to be the warmest tree-lined lake in Canada, perhaps caused by underwater hot springs on the bottom of the lake. It is a popular summer tourist spot today. The times when the lake does freeze over, snowmobile racing and ice fishing are popular. Originally the home territory of the Scenic people who moved to the U.S., the lake was named after the daughter of the famous fur trader Angus MacDonald. Early pioneers came into this area when the Kootenay Trail, the forerunner of the Crowsnest Highway, was built. Whoa, be careful here. Look for that Black Crow sign for the highway. We've got a turn here if we're headed for Grand Forks. We get into a little drier country as we approach Grand Forks. Each year, the highway sees a few more inexperienced and out-of-province drivers, including truck drivers. Also, a few truck drivers are paid by the kilometer, so some can want to go a little faster and take a few more chances. But all you really have to do is just keep within the speed limit, and you'll be okay. There are frequent passing lanes, and pull-outs, rest stops, and a good parking lane along much of the highway. Take your time and enjoy the road. Whoa! What was that noise? That was a blowout. We've got a flat tire. Lucky for us, the blowout was on one of the rear duals, so we were able to crawl along at slow speed. With the four-way flashers on, we hobbled along for over an hour, somewhere between Christina Lake and Grand Forks. Finally, we made it to Grand Forks. Would the tire shop even be open? If they were, would they have my size of tire in stock? Suddenly, an enjoyable trip was becoming a worrisome one, but we were still relieved to get into Grand Forks. It was near closing time on a Saturday, so I guess I was lucky to even find the right kind of tire. As the guy was changing the tire, I told him that I was a real fussy kind of fella and always ran only the very top grade of tires on my rig. I asked him if that cheap off-brand that he was throwing on my rig would negatively affect the other tires or maybe the wheel bearings. He looked me straight in the eye and says, beggars can't be choosers. Well, that was the end of that conversation. I thanked him for the tire and for putting it on, and we were on the road again. Castlegar and Grand Forks is in Doukhobor country. The Doukhobors were a pacifist religious group from Russia who developed farmland first in Saskatchewan, then moved to the West Kootenays here. Grand Forks is at the confluence of the Kettle and Granby rivers and has struggled against river flooding, frequently blaming too much on clear cutting and also not enough releasing water flow from dams in the U.S. I think we will stop overnight at Greenwood here. I know your attention span is not that long, so we'll quit this video and that's the end of part 1. But we'll continue on tomorrow, part 2. We'll head out, keep going west on the Crow's Nest. There's a lot more interesting communities to see. So we'll see you in part 2. Until then, this is I Go Travel with Don Barnett. Hit the subscribe button if you like what you see, and it will tell you when we're bringing more videos, travel videos, onto the internet. All right, so long for now.